And on that note, I would like to call the wonderful person, moderator, Mr. Gunjan Bagla, CEO at Amritt Inc. And one thing that you may or may not know, he had served as a board member and president at Pan IIT US for 3 years, and still he contributes. So please, ladies and gentlemen, with a clap of hands, please let's welcome Mr. Gunjan Bagla for the next session.
Thank you, thank you. Hello, everyone. So for the volunteers, I'm old-fashioned. We'll be using index cards only, and volunteers should hand the index cards to my friend Rama right here. Okay, he's an IIT Kanpur guy, so I can trust him. Okay. Now, we know that the first IIT was Kharagpur, started in a former jail. Okay, and that's very appropriate. Because of many reasons we won't get into. I'd like to invite my dear friend Arjun Malhotra to join me here, please. Okay, bad here, sir. Okay. Arjun is one of the most accomplished IIT alumni. I teach a workshop on doing business in India to people who don't look like this, most of them. And one of the things I tell them is that we give our respects to our elders. So I'm going to do that even though, okay, Guruji. Okay. Next, I'm going to invite Consul General Dr. Srikar Reddy to join. Okay. Srikar has been in this role for little over a year. And he is the most amazing Consul General of the last 20 that I have seen here. In our first meeting with Smita and me, I asked him, what are your priorities? And most Consul Generals say, serving the community, doing visas, political roles. He said 2 words, trade and investment. Okay? He was deputed to the Ministry of Commerce prior to this role, and he spent most of his career, even though he's a medical doctor and an IFS officer, and you know that's the toughest department to get into the government, okay? He has spent most of his career in trade and investment, okay? So amazing that we have him here. And finally, I want to invite my dear friend, Pradeep Khosla. Pradeep is a very special person. I met him first when he was the Dean of Engineering at Carnegie Mellon University. He made the sensible decision to come to California and run a state university as if it were a private university.
I had hair when I came.
Yeah, I know. He has transformed UC San Diego. The accomplishments at UC San Diego are unbelievable. But more than that, I think he is the most approachable top leader that I have met. You can sit down with him and you feel like you are in the IIT canteen chatting with somebody. He has wonderful stories, and the respect that he has garnered within the UC San Diego community is amazing. The amount of money that you have raised is kind of scary, you know, in terms of, I think soon they'll be, by the time he retires, it'll be like Harvard, you know. Amazing stuff. But lots of good technology is happening there. We're going to talk about some of that as we go on. Now, this is an interactive session, which means send your questions now, okay? Don't wait until the end. If you write down your name on the index card, I might even mention it, okay? Questions should not be individual or personal. That you can do in the networking. Something that at least 10 other IITians or other attendees, non-IITians, might have, okay? All right.
All of you standing at the back, there are chairs up here in front.
You can come up here, please.
Where are the index cards?
The index cards are...
There on the chair, right in front of you.
No, those are written up, but no, they're, volunteers are there. Okay, let's get started. So, Arjun, I have a small confession to make. When I was graduating, I applied for a job at HCL. Okay.
We were tough. We were tough.
They wanted only salespeople. I had no idea what a salesperson does. One of the questions in their psychological evaluation was, when you sleep, do you always make sure the door is locked? I said, yaar, ye sales wale to aisa nahi karte honge. So I said, no. They didn't even interview me. Okay. More to something closer. When I was writing my book, which a lot of people know me for, this book on how to do business in India, I wanted to interview a number of Americans who had lived and worked in India. And it's kind of tough to catch them. I wrote one email to Arjun. I said, I'm busy today, but I'll get back to you. Within 48 hours, Arjun had an introduction to a number of people who had deep engagement with India. And the content of my book, Arjun, was transformed because of your help. So thank you very much.
You didn't give me any royalty, but.
I know. Yeah. But I think there's credit in there for you. And the book is still, amazingly, 15 years later, it's still selling. Now, somebody asked me, why did you choose San Diego as the location for the conference? So, at IIT, first year, they teach you how to bullshit a lot, right? So I'll give you that answer, okay? Whichever city you live in, if it's not San Diego, do they have a boat named Star of India? Okay. Whichever city you live in, if it's not San Diego, is there a street called India Street? Okay, San Diego has both, right? But really, the true reason is sitting on the very right side here. Look at this wonderful venue. This is owned by UC San Diego, okay? And Chancellor Khosla has been kind enough to let us use it. So let's talk about US-India, okay? Why San Diego, okay? There's some people who can't be here today, okay? General Atomics is based here. How many of you know General Atomics, okay? They make the MQ-9 Reaper drone, okay? This is the massive unmanned aerial vehicle that they used in Iraq and, Afghanistan and Ukraine and everywhere, right? India has bought $4 billion worth of the MQ-9, okay? For the first time, the United States has agreed to license the technology with its most advanced weapons going on this aircraft to be manufactured by HAL in India. That's the degree of collaboration we are seeing between the US and India, and it's coming out of San Diego, okay? If you go to the campus of UC San Diego, you will see that they have the 21st Century India Center, and they're doing amazing work. This is not one of those, just in name kind of things that we see at other universities that I won't name. I'm not talking about Wharton or UCLA or whatever. It's real stuff happening here at UC San Diego. So lots of good stuff. Since it's an AI conference, we have to do one AI question. After that, we'll get to real intelligence. Okay? Consul General Reddy, I want to start with you, since you were the motivation for having this panel. Tell us a little bit about what's happening relating to AI between US and India.
Yeah, thank you, Gunjanji. First of all, good morning and namaskar to all of you, and also my esteemed panelists on the dais. So I'm very much delighted to participate in this IIT Alumni Southern California conference. So coming to the topic regarding what is happening in the AI domain between India and US. So as you're aware, India is now the 5th largest economy in the world and one of the fastest growing large economy. So last year we grew around 8.2%, which is highest in the world. And we are expected to grow over 7% in the next few years. And even all the international agencies like IMF, World Bank project India to become the 3rd largest economy in the next 2-3 years, and also 7 trillion economy by 2030. As you're aware, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has set an ambitious target of making India a developed country by 2047. So for that, we have a demographic dividend, like the average age of Indians is 28 years, and most of the Indian youth are aspirational, and as you know, India is now one of the topmost startup ecosystem country. We are the 3rd largest, and we have close to 140,000 startups, and already 115 unicorns. So already government has invested in the digital infrastructure, like as you are aware about this digital public infrastructure, the India Stack story, where we have these three, like we have the Aadhaar card on one side, we have the United Payment Interface and the digital layer. So whereby we have already, we already have close to 900 million Indian mobile broadband users in India. So with this vast users, the large data is being available in the India. And we also set an ambitious target to make India digital economy to contribute 1 trillion by 2030, when India is expected to become a 7 trillion economy. So we think that with this already large digital infrastructure in India and also Government of India schemes like Startup India, Digital India, so we think that the AI revolution which is happening in India will be the flag bearer for India to achieve this target. And already, like AI is adopted, like especially the generative AI is adopted in India in various domains, like already in agriculture and even retail, fintech, deep tech, education, healthcare. If you name any domain, including manufacturing, automotive sectors also they are using. So, in fact, both countries, we have realized that in January last year, 2023, so at the National Security Advisor level, so we have launched an initiative called Critical and Emerging Technologies between the two countries, wherein artificial intelligence, quantum, space, biotech, and semiconductor, these are the important sectors which have been identified. Under this, actually, under the ISET framework, we also had a university-to-university collaboration where the IIT Council in India and the Association of American Universities came with the report. I think he was also one of the author in that. So which also talks about collaboration between India and US. And coming to the artificial intelligence, under the ISET framework, we also, like in November last year when Minister Goyal was here, we signed an innovation handshake between India and US, wherein both the startup ecosystem will collaborate, especially the government stakeholders will meet with the entrepreneurs, the startup ecosystem, and also the venture capitalists. They will come together to identify what are the barriers, regulatory barriers, and also what are the best practices in the US which can be emulated in their startup ecosystem. Already we have 2 meetings, and third meeting we are going to do in Bay Area sometime this year. And in fact, early this week, we had this IndusX meeting in Stanford. This is a collaboration between startup ecosystem in the defense sector. So the third summit was held. I participated in that. Condoleezza Rice from the US was also there. So this is also to promote cooperation in the defense startups, and already a lot of progress has been made, like he has mentioned about the General Atomics. They're also supporting a couple of startups in India in semiconductor sector and also artificial intelligence sector in India.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Dr. Reddy. Thank you very much. Arjun, you and I talked a little bit about the impact of AI. Now, Arjun is a unique person because he built a computer company in India in the 70s. And I remember, he's a great storyteller too. So back then, when they wanted to get to sell computers, it took 4 years to get a license to sell the computer. In those 4 years, they called it a typewriter, to get it through. And so from there, he came to the US, and he's done a number of companies here. He's had success in both countries and is equally respected in both countries. So, and you're investing in companies that are doing work in India still to this day, still has a home in New Delhi, even though he lives in Saratoga most of the time. So how is India going to play a role? If you can just say in 90 seconds, people are worried about job losses. All the big IT companies have stopped hiring in big numbers. What is India's role?
So I think Munish said it absolutely right. I mean, I remember in the days when we started computers, unions and middle management were very worried about their jobs going away and computers replacing them. Now, probably before most people's time here. But look at what's happened with computers. If you know how to use a computer, there are more jobs available. I think Munish said exactly the same thing, that doctors and nurses are not going to be replaced by AI, but if they don't know how to use AI, then they will be replaced. That's going to be true in every industry. So if you haven't learned how to use some of these platforms or prompt engineering, please learn it or get your kids to learn it because that's the jobs that's going to be available. And of course, in India, what a lot of work around AI is going in terms of solutions. People are trying to look for solutions. Again, Munish talked about how important that millions of data was that they had and put out on the public domain, so to say. India has a lot of data. If you go, they've been writing those registers and storing them somewhere for I don't know how many years. And with today's technology, I can read some of that. With my low-cost people, I can actually key it in if I need to. I have a lot of data in India. And now is the time that we can go and leverage that data. I mean, do what we're talking about in healthcare, do dose response curves, look at how the Indian physiology is, just do millions of things. And with our digital database that Aadhaar and UPI and all have set up, there are multiple stacks. There's the health stack coming up. There are multiple stacks coming up. And at some point, you actually will just do electronic kind of work. Again, look at with voice as an interface. We heard about that this morning. We talk about 150 million illiterate in India, but if I give them a verbal World Wide Web that they can go to in their language and get an answer back by voice, how are they illiterate? And how is the digital revolution leaving them behind? So there are lots of opportunities that a country like India gives you today. In fact, I keep telling people that 5-10 years from now, people will go from here to India like they're coming here today to work. And basically, we got to get a education infrastructure set up. In fact, again, one of my alumni, 1960 from Kharagpur, publishes a lot of these iWatch, and he said a very interesting thing. He said in 1991, we unshackled the goddess Lakshmi, and see what it's done to the country. It's time to unshackle Saraswati.
Yeah.
And get it.
Yeah. Okay. On campus, I was the editor of the campus official magazine that we called Counterpoint, and my chief competitor was a magazine called Spark. And then there was another one called the Cheshire Cat, which was just really funny. So they had a story. This is going back before many of you were born. And they wrote an article about how a bunch of Americans were sitting down and submitting applications to MIT, the Muzaffarpur Institute of Technology. Okay, now that's going to become real now. Manipal Institute of Technology maybe, but same thing. So Pradeep, you just came back from India. How many times do you go to India now?
I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 times a year.
Wow, that's way more than I do, and I'm supposed to be doing just that. Yeah. So.
But 5 are mandatory because I'm on a board, a public board. So.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about. I know you have the supercomputing center on the campus and so on. We all know that, but relating to India and AI, what can you share from your recent trip? I understand you were on what used to be called Racecourse Road, but they have a new name for that road now.
I don't know, but so my involvement is, the reason I went was for the semiconductor mission. So I'm a member of the advisory board of both the semiconductor mission and the quantum mission, which is actually ironic because my background is AI, so that's where I should be, but I'm not. So
Your mission is coming.
Yeah, I know. But I think for me, what was exciting was about 30 years ago, India tried to build a fab. I think Intel was the company, and there was so much bureaucracy and all sorts of stuff. In the end, I think they could not build a fab, even though the money was coming from here. What was exciting for me is the time has come now where India is and will be building a fab, and the first fab is being led by Tata Sons. So Tata Electronics will be building the fab, which is both a matter of great pride because I sit on their board and also because India will be building a fab. And then the major CEOs of major electronics companies were there, and half of them are Indian. So I think the investment, both emotional investment of people of Indian origin who are leaders here, the government in India, and the commitment to make something big happen and succeed is really serious. And I can tell you, without the ability to manufacture electronics locally, you are limiting the security of the country, you are limiting economic growth of the country, and you would be paying NVIDIA a lot of money for no good reason. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a great thing that they're doing. So that's where I'm involved. But I'm also involved in building universities and doing AI. And that's in the context of bringing AI and fintech to Gift City and trying to understand what can we do in terms of master's level training to really build the next class of people. So the thing I've been concerned about personally is that we are good at supplying manpower and arbitraging compensation, but we should be arbitraging IP, because our ability to develop IP at a cheaper cost and then deploy it at a cheaper cost and compete in the world market is very significant. And we have not done that very effectively. There are outlier cases like Arjun, who has done it really well. But on the average, for a $1.4 billion of a billion people country, we have not done it effectively. So I think that's what we need to be investing.
Totally.
So I just want to add one more thing. From a commercial point of view, with the large domestic market that India has today for electronic products, our import bill on electronic components will exceed our import bill on oil in 4 or 5 years if we don't do this. It's a commercial imperative for India.
Yep.
It has to do it. And what we are trying to do is build products for local markets in volume and force component manufacturers to make in India to supply those products. That's probably the only language people understand.
And that'll add to the GDP.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, it takes away from the GDP.
Totally. Yeah, so at the semiconductor mission, the SEMCON India that just concluded, NXP, which is one of the large chip companies. Is there anybody here who works for NXP? Okay. Or Micron Technology? I met someone who works for Micron.
There
right?
are.
So
You can't
thank you for
badmouth
being here. Micron is investing $3.7 billion into a facility in Gujarat. Now, for all of us IITians, you should understand, it is not a chip fab. Despite what you read in the Economic Times and Times of India and all of that, it's an assembly and testing packaging facility. That's 4% of the value of their chips. Okay? Mm-hmm. That is 3.7 billion. Now, they're investing 700 million. Indian government, Gujarat government is putting in the rest. But it's really created this impetus now that the Tatas are going in, that NXP is going in, a whole, slew of companies is going in. Okay, I've been working on the US-India front since I started my company, consulting company, since in 2002. Okay, and we track the news from India every day. Now it's become like a flood. I blog about it. I post it on LinkedIn. This morning I woke up. The Ford Motor Company, which recently decided to leave India, is going back into Chennai, and they are going to export cars made in India to all over the world. This just happened overnight. Okay, there's this huge wave going to India. Part of it is motivated, frankly, by American concerns about China. Okay? So Apple has moved so much of its manufacturing. Now, Apple makes nothing in India, by the way. It's Apple's contractors that are making it. Us IITians understand that. But nonetheless, they're creating more than 50,000 jobs in India. Okay? And people who work there will then go on to do other things as well. Okay? So there's a tremendous force. To me, it's like 1991 all over again. But this is massive, what is happening today. So
just to update you on Apple, I bumped into an IIT Kharagpur alum who heads design in Apple for their products. And he was going around India identifying design houses that they could outsource work to. So Apple is going to get very active with India.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One more interesting statistic before I got it yesterday. In the Fortune 2000 companies, there are 136 Indian CEOs.
Actually,
so I just wanted to set a target for many of you here.
But more than half are in Fortune 500.
Yeah.
Fortune 500 is like...
As Durga said, we all came from very demanding parents, and they are not easily impressed. So when my son got into Stanford, which at that time was the most exclusive school in the US, I told him, don't be so happy, because your dad had a much tougher time getting into IIT. So we go through this immense pressure cooker, at one of the IIT campuses. And when I graduated, there were 5. Now there are 24 IITs, all over the country. But the quality of undergraduate students graduating and the PhDs and all coming out are absolutely world class. So,
I think one of the things you learned, or at least I learned at IIT, was how to survive in an environment where there are people smarter than you.
yeah, totally. Okay, so a whole bunch of questions on healthcare. Maybe we'll have to call Manish back to this as well. But let me get through some of the others. So, Dr. Reddy, a quick answer on this. I think you covered some of this, but what incentives does the government of India offer to startups for people of Indian origin? I'm changing the question a little bit, but people of Indian origin here who want to participate in that startup ecosystem, what incentives does the government of India offer for them to do the reverse of what Arjun did when he moved to the US? Now there's so many people who want to go back to India.
So we have this Startup India mission, which is to create, foster innovation and entrepreneurship among the young people in India. So a lot of incentives are there, including tax incentives and also funding, kind of seed funding kind of support, and also IP, like helping them to register for IP. So a lot of things are there. Even under this, we have a new AI mission, so in which for the deep tech startups, so separate funding will be given in addition to the whatever funding is available under the normal Startup India scheme. There is separate funding under the AI mission also for the deep tech startup. So already I said we have these kind of frameworks, innovation handshake between India and US. So we are trying to establish linkages and also helping venture capitalists go to India. In fact, next week on 23rd to 25th, we are having a NASSCAM startup delegation of 35 companies, the deep tech sector visiting the Bay Area. So we're doing an event with UC Berkeley with the Skydeck. So we're doing an event where we are also inviting some of the venture capitalists in the Bay Area to participate. And also like, it will be a pitching kind of session, and if somebody is interested, they can invest. So we are also facilitating these kind of events between India and US. So some of the startups, they can collaborate with the Indian startups.
So, besides the PLI, production linked incentive, they now have design linked incentives.
Yeah.
So you have that. And the second thing is they have Gift City. I don't know how many of you have heard of Gift City,
Yeah.
but it's what used to be Mauritius and Singapore is now, you can do that in near Ahmedabad in Gandhinagar through Gift City.
But legally, not Hera Fairy.
Yeah, legally.
Mauritius.
So Arjun used some terms that people who don't work on the US-India angle might not know about. So India has this way of incentivizing manufacturing in India called the production-linked incentive, which means for simplifying, for every dollar you spend, you get 30 cents back. Okay. Similarly, Arjun talked about the design-linked incentive. And to add to what Dr. Reddy said, if you are an American startup looking for money from India, okay, the way to get it is to set up an Indian entity, okay, and that Indian entity can receive funding from Startup India if it is 51% owned by people who are Indian citizens. Okay. Now, if you are nervous about 51% going to someone you don't control, there's ways around that. Not Hera Peri. Not Hera Peri. Okay.
This is Hera Fairy.
No Hera Peri.
Classes of stocks.
I'm a US citizen. I'm governed by the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Okay? And when you violate that, you go to jail. I promise my wife I'll never do that, right? So the way to do it is to have two Indian partners, each with 25%, and then you have 49%, whatever, right? So that they don't, as long as they don't gang up on you, you'll be fine. Okay?
What Gift City allows you to do, it allows Indian funds, individuals to invest in US companies without a long RBI process.
Right.
Okay.
So I can get, with setting up a company here, I can get funds from India that will come in. They have restrictions on dividends, have to go back, all that for them, but you can get the funds. And the process is supposedly single window. I mean, I've done it. I've done it. The first one took about 6 weeks, but I believe it's been...
It's streamlined.
Now it's been sort of, the process is established, so it'll be much quicker.
So one of the greatest IITians is in the audience here. I see him with a smile right now on this. Well, let's Kanwal Rekhi is sitting up front here. He's he's a huge icon. You will get to talk to him, in his panel. So
I do want to tell you the story of the first fab in India, what happened then. Intel had decided to put a fab in India. The two prime ministers of Vietnam and India. And they were ready to announce to put a fab in Hyderabad. Diyalini Saran, who was the minister of at the last minute, he says he have to do that in Chennai, or if we not doing that, you come in. The next week, the Intel announced to Vietnam.
Yep.
yeah,
I was part of that whole group there.
yeah.
It was all set, and the minister says he acted like the mayor of Chennai rather than the federal minister. They are doing it in Chennai, otherwise no do.
That sounds like how a cricket team used to be selected in the old days.
Maybe still is, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. But has the system in India been streamlined, Kanwal? Okay. So,
I'm hearing that from no. Why do I need the gift city? Why cannot all of India be a gift city?
That's a good.
It's a nonsense, right?
Yeah, it's a good question, but the fact that it exists makes it.
No, but doesn't say it. It's a mind. It's a mind.
so if you do not follow Kanwal on Facebook or LinkedIn, I highly recommend that you do. Okay? There's so much wisdom contained in. I don't always agree with everything he says, like no two IITians can agree all the time, but certainly, I think he's a great counterpoint to many of us in terms of the real accomplishments. And he's been committed to India, in a big way. He's a large donor to IIT Mumbai, and he grew up in Kanpur, where I grew up, and he's donated to IIT Kanpur and many causes in Kanpur as well. So thank you, Kanwal. I love what you have to say, even though we have to have this interactive conversation.
The audience involved here. So
Yes, so yeah, absolutely. No, some of this is from the audience. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Vijay wants to know, he's interested in leadership opportunities in US-India trade and investment. Who do I contact? Arjun?
Yeah, if you can define what you mean by leadership opportunities.
He wants to be a CEO to run an Indian
no,
company.
There are a number of funds that actually do that corridor. One of the things you could do is talk to those funds and see if they need someone with your profile in some of their portfolio companies that could come up. The other thing is go to India and look at what they want done here and see if you can help them do that in some ways. Invest India, there are lots of quasi-government organizations that are somewhat independent that are trying to do things differently. I think the Aadhaar experiment with Nandan really showed that if you, I don't know how many of you know the scope of Aadhaar. It's not been done in any other country in the world, right? The way he did it was he got all the IT services companies to volunteer people to set up the team. So you suddenly had great people from these companies come in and do a completely disruptive thing that everyone thought was impossible, right? And we have that kind of talent in India. We have that kind of talent here. Just got to get it done. Somehow bureaucracy doesn't seem to be able to effectively do it, but the fact that it's happened once is likely to happen again. And you're starting to see some of that. Not all experiments will work, not with a positive outcome, but yes, unless you try it, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Arjun. So, Pradeep, a question for you. Arush Srivastav wants to know, what makes India competitive to work with US academics?
So I think the sheer abundance of talent is what makes it competitive. And the lack of infrastructure in India, in an ironic way, makes it competitive for US. But it's unfortunate. It should be equal infrastructure. And one of the things I'm trying to do is break down the silo of investment. Where, so for example, it used to be the government investment in research would only go to public institutions, and only like 5 of them. which was like stupidity. So now they go to private institutions, but there's still like a mafia out there controlling who gets what. And we're trying to say, you got to become a little bit more egalitarian. You got to trust people, build a culture of trust, but verify instead of a culture of distrust and create surveillance. And I think that's the whole notion that going in, the thinking is, oh, I don't trust you, so I'm going to put all these rules around so to make sure that you follow the rules, but that's just a bad way of doing business. So I think slowly but steadily it's changing, not changing fast enough, but fast enough for it to be 7 trillion by 2030. But 7 trillion by 2030 is a great objective, but it is actually, if you just do the compounding effect, it will happen with or without much investment. So I'm just concerned about losing this, the premium or the dividend for the age dividend that we talk about. In 10 more years, we would not be a young country anymore. So I'm just concerned that we would be losing that. And I think we need to be investing more aggressively, building more infrastructure, and not killing. So like give you one thought for you. So even though the Consul General talked about 140 unicorns, not one of them is doing business in India, in the US, not one. That doesn't make sense. Even though India is a large market, I mean, this is the market that builds wealth. This is the market that understands how to value companies. And I think we need to bring some of these companies here, and they should be doing business out here. So Arjun, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong. But
No, actually, some of them, TCS, HCL, they're all unicorns, but they are doing business.
no, I'm talking about unicorns as in startup unicorns, not, no.
Some of them are. I mean, to say none would not be right.
There's one significant exception which hasn't gone public yet. It's Zoho.
Oh,
Zoho
okay.
is a direct
All right.
competitor of Salesforce. Their revenue, I think, is in
okay.
$1 billion. There's also a...
We need more, so what?
Oh, yeah. So 20 years ago, I wrote an article for CIO magazine saying the product companies from India are coming. So let me give you an extreme example. The country of Israel, whose population is less than that of Bangalore, okay? The entire country, okay? They have produced hundreds of companies, okay, that use Israel as the back end, US as the market. It has been done over and over and over in so many industries. When I go to India, I say, you don't have to use your brain, just look at what Israel did. Just copy that, okay, and you will succeed. Today it is happening. We do a lot of work in life sciences, and life sciences, I promise you, in 20 years will be bigger than IT is today, okay? There's tremendous innovation happening with the advent of AI, where you don't have to do things in vivo, which is in animals, or in vitro in a test tube. You can do it in silico, in software. You can design drugs in software and test them in software with digital twins. It's going to change the way drugs are developed, and India has a huge possibility. The government of the United States has been kind enough. On Monday, the House of Representatives passed an act called the Biosecure Act. How many of you know what the Biosecure Act is? Okay. So the Biosecure Act would restrict Chinese companies, some named ones, but really it will affect the entire ecosystem, from receiving any projects from US entities if the US entity has any business with the federal government, which every pharma company does. Okay? WuXi AppTech alone has $6 billion of life science business in the US. All the Indian CROs put together have less than that, okay? The Syngenes, the Aerogens, and all of that, right? So there's a huge opportunity. This is better than Y2K in that sense. But frankly, India isn't, India isn't taking full advantage of that yet, but it will happen, okay? So questions here. Somebody is asking about voice. I think, Ashok, that's better addressed with Durga Maladi, who's still here. So you can take that offline with him. Thank you, Durga, for staying. It's too broad a question, I'll skip that. Let's talk a little bit about IP. You referred to it a little bit, Pradeep, in your comments. So we have these giant service providers, TCS, Infosys, In India, we call them software companies, and they're not really software companies, right? They're software services companies for the most part. I mean, Infosys, I know they had this banking product called Finacle, and TCS has a few and so on. Wipro and HCL probably have a little more of the product orientation, but they're not, if you create IP and you sell a product, you get to make 1,000 times of the cost of the product. If you are selling man hours, you're lucky if you make a 2x or 3x, and salaries in India are rising, and that differential will slowly kind of disappear. So my question really for Pradeep and Arjun, what is holding back? You know, I use an antivirus program from a company in Romania, okay, Bitdefender. Why can't India produce an antivirus program that everybody uses? You know, why did SAP have to come out of Germany? They don't even speak English, even to this day, right? Why don't we have those companies coming out of India? Why don't we have hardware products that people use in the day-to-day life coming out of India? You know, what's wrong with us IIT engineers that we can't get that done? Either of you.
Arjun?
Yeah. I'm happy. So first thing, there are 2-3 questions there. So the first thing is, all these Indian IT services companies do what I call asset-based consulting. Accenture does it. They've all got assets. You don't call them products because they don't sell as products, but they have IP-based assets in-house based on which they do their consulting or their services, which is what gives them the edge.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, with their overheads, how are they going to compete with the mom and pop shop that'll come in? Right? So just remember, while it looks like they're doing labor arbitrage, over time, a lot of that has moved towards more asset-based consulting. That's number one. Number two, why are products not coming out of India? Is because the market is so large that they cannot fulfill the demand in India. And why would they step out till they are ready to step out? Plus, the products are made for the Indian market. iFlex was made for the Indian market for banking. And Oracle took it because they wanted to go to the quote-unquote developing world to sell a product because Kapiti and Hogan and whatever else they had here were not the right fit for those markets. So just remember, you make products for your market. And the last thing 2 more things. Israel is a great example, but if I am under threat all the time and my survival is at stake, I will take products out every day. That'll help me in my defense, which then can translate to a commercial market, right? So just remember the environment is different when you look at it. In fact, I worry a little bit that as our economy picks up, we get more comfortable, the drive will go away. What made India, I look at myself and say, what made me an entrepreneur was the fact that partition happened and there was a level of insecurity subconsciously that you tried to overcome by saying, I don't ever want that insecurity or that level of insecurity. I think, Kanwal, that this generation is the one that created that original entrepreneurship. It was otherwise, you were a businessman, you needed money to start a company, right? Of course, technology helped and gave us a way to do it. And the last thing is why hardware, software, services, low-hanging fruit. And only now, what we are trying to do, actually, Ajay Chaudhary, who is another HCL co-founder, and I have started a not-for-profit foundation called Epic Foundation, where the idea is to give money for designs for Indian products, so that at least we'll take that step. Once the product is designed, then different companies will manufacture and sell it, and hopefully, like we have brands in IT services, we'll have brands in hardware that'll go around the world. I don't know if it'll happen, may not happen in my lifetime, but hopefully some of these kids here, they'll feel proud about Indian hardware brands that are then global.
Yeah. So for the young people in this room, I want to say, you really have to step up your dreams, right? Imagine Arjun wanting to build a computer company in the 1970s in India, right? And pretty tough thing. The first computer had a little display this big, okay? But it really helped transform India at that time, right? So those of you who are sitting here saying, hey, what can I do? There's lots of upside possibility. I mean, I'll give you a personal example. I run a consulting firm, right? Some of you might work for McKinsey or BCG or one of these big firms, right? So how does a small consulting firm, where we do some of the same things, how do we compete, right? You know, we depend on media. So the day 2014, the results of the Indian election were announced, I was quoted on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Okay? I didn't have a PR agency or anything. I didn't have the resources, but you build the relationships with the with the reporters, and it was 2 in the morning that I took that call. When I was in a business trip with a client, and they took one line from what I said, a 30-minute. India is a big ship. It will take a long time to turn around. But it was in quotes on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. You can do it. I'm not trying to boast about myself. I'm saying everyone here has the potential of whatever it is you're going to do to be able to cross that bridge, no matter how large the competition might be.
Can I just correct that story you said? I'll take a few minutes.
Okay.
So, he mentioned about how we had trouble getting our computers out. So the way it worked in those, and I want to give this story only to say how much India has progressed in many ways. It's got a long way to go. But so when we made our first computers, the bill of material was 30%, nice margin in hardware. So we would take a 30% advance, build the computer, call the customer to the factory. He would inspect the machine, give us a check for 70%, then we'd pack it and ship it. So first customer comes, gives us the check, we are packing the machine, and someone in the factory says, have you paid your excise? I said, what is excise? Said, there's a production tax in India that you have to pay on everything you do. And so said, how will it be? So it said, we don't know, but for a lot of electronic products, it's ad valorem, which is a percentage of the value. For transformers, it's 4 annas a kilo by weight. So I don't know how they'll see your thing. So we called the excise inspector. He went through the whole manual. There's no microprocessor, mini computer. There was nothing. So he said, I can't tell you. So then what do we do? So he said, basically, you write a letter to your administrative ministry. They will write a letter to the finance ministry. The finance ministry will take out a notification and said, but that'll take 3-4 months. I mean, we can't wait. He said, no, don't worry. This is revenue generating for the government. They'll do it in 1 day. Okay. So Department of Electronics had just been set up because electronics was the future. And we used to work half-day Saturdays. I still remember Saturday we went and gave them a full presentation and said, please write to the finance ministry. That time we were told that the microprocessor policy has still not been decided. We expected to take 4 years. So please come back 4 years later, then we'll write that. So, we didn't know what to do, So all of us decided to take that book back, the excise book, and look at it over the weekend. Maybe we'll find a solution. Now, import substitution was a big thing in India because we have a shortage of dollars. And we used to import something called electromechanical accounting invoicing machine from East Germany, Robotron in East Germany. And there was a picture of that. There was a keyboard, a small display, and a printer. And so we showed it to the excise guy and said, look at a machine. He said, we hai. So 4 years, we cleared those computers as accounting invoicing machines. Sold one to Department of Electronics also. So that was India in those days. So things have really changed.
That's amazing.
Some things haven't changed about India even now. So how many of you here who watch Indian media follow someone named Palki Sharma? Okay. So she has a vivid imagination.
Yes.
Okay. She lives in the same, my brother is a famous journalist. They live very close to each other. So when he hears this video, he's going to get mad at me. But so the question, I will not name my friend who asked this question. But she had a recent video out saying, India to dominate the chip business. Okay? India today has, 0.01% of the chip market in any way that you define it. So, sorry, my friend, you're asking, how far away is India from becoming the chip manufacturing center of the world? Very far. Okay. Good progress, but if it's a marathon, they're not even taking the first step yet.
And actually, it's important to know this. Even the technology, the fab that's going to be built is -3 generations.
Yep.
It is not N-1. It is -3 generations, which, by the way, is a big step, but it's an important step. So don't get me wrong, because a lot of the chips are in that fab, right, that category.
You've also got to look at it holistically. Just putting a chip up without having people who know how to run it is not going to work. So getting enough design engineers to be able to design chips that will tomorrow go into products. So I think they're looking at it somewhat more holistically.
Yeah.
And so universities are being encouraged, they're getting funding to do VLSI design, all that stuff. So it is, and you're right, it is not an overnight issue. It's going to take 5 to 10 years.
And it's
before you
well
start.
thought out, and that's the important part. It's not piecemeal, right? It's a holistic thinking, and I think we need to be patient. We cannot just say, oh, they've not done anything.
So,
They've done a lot.
as you were saying when we were chatting, Pradeep, that the Minister of Electronics and Railways also, I think, is an IIT alumnus from the best IIT. Those of you who know where I am from can, IIT Kanpur, Ashwini Vaishnav.
You've got to go home. So just remember that.
Yeah.
His wife is from Roorkee, so he'll...
Let me add something. So India already, we have 20% of the global design of semiconductors in India.
Exactly.
Already, like we are setting up 1 fab and 4 ATPs. I think we have made a good beginning, and I think Gunjan seems pessimistic, but very optimistic. He was there in India just...
And also the
Right.
leading design firms are led by Indian CEOs.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Srikar, I'm not pessimistic at all. I'm very optimistic. But what I'm saying is the vision is getting far ahead. Okay? The public perception is getting far
Whatever
ahead.
Palki said,
Yeah.
there's a merit in that because of the global supply chains, everybody looking,
Right.
moving away from the East Asia. So
Absolutely.
we have a scope.
There was a Browning poem which said, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp. Or what's a heaven for?
Yeah,
And so, we've got a dream.
absolutely.
Gunjan, being part of the strategy to be successful is to declare success even before you start.
Yeah. True. So along those lines, there's a question, anonymous. What's your opinion on the state of R&D investment in India? How does it vary across sectors? So I'm going to give a very positive answer to this question.
Finally.
The consistent reports you see from India, how many minutes did you say? Okay, so consistent things you see from India coming out is India does not invest enough in R&D. There's not enough investment going on. Okay, I think that's baloney. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Those measures only look at Indian spending on Indian R&D. Okay, but when GE has 5,000 PhDs working, okay, when Amgen, located in Thousand Oaks, just announced they'll hire 3,000 people in Hyderabad, Dr. Reddy's favorite city. Although he can't be favorite because, hometown. Okay, that's better. Yeah, sorry, we have to be politically correct. Okay. So when Intel and AMD and all of these,
IBM.
yeah, thousands of companies are building R&D centers in India. That R&D money is being spent in India. The engineers coming out of Siemens and Philips and GE are starting their own companies. So the actual spend on R&D in India is tremendous. Now, the IP value of what GE and Intel and NVIDIA and all are creating in India doesn't stay in India. That's the problem we talked about earlier. But there's plenty of R&D spending happening in India. And Dr. Reddy, I'm very optimistic. I live my life about India. Every morning I dream about India. My wife goes crazy, right? So, but what I want to be sure about is that we don't build a fiction about India, right? The reality is great, okay? And yes, we should declare success. I'm all for that, okay? But, if
That's the American PR machine,
Yeah.
when you declare success and then...
I will declare success when we have more companies from India than Israel does doing well, okay? That's not a very tough goal to achieve, okay? And I take part in a lot of Jewish organizations to kind of get their pulse, and, we can do it. It's absolutely doable. And I started with the IIT alumni movement. That's the thing I said. All we have to do is, there are only 20 million Jews in the whole world. Okay? There are 20 million immigrants from India living all over the world. And now they're 30, yeah. So that was 20 years ago, I said, yeah. So it's absolutely possible, okay? And that's the excitement that should keep us all going. There's a huge, huge opportunity. Dr. Reddy, I'll take the last question for you. And we didn't get to the health questions. I'm sorry, because I think other people can address it better. There's there's a CTO panel later, where there's 2 medical device folks, 3, and then there's a life science panel where you can bring up those questions. So, Dr. Reddy, quick answer. They're already saying stop. What does the government of India want from the people in this room?
The Prime Minister gave a call to make India a developed country by 2047. He gave this call to all Indians living in India and also abroad, which includes all of you, especially IITians. You have done great things to the US economy through your innovation and entrepreneurship. So I think most of you are at senior positions in various companies. And even at the government-to-government level, even the US government leadership, they are encouraging US companies to look India in a big way, especially China plus one strategy. So India, as already mentioned, we have a lot of incentive schemes, production-linked incentive schemes. We have the Semicon India scheme of 10 billion. We have various like design-linked incentive scheme. So you can use your position to nudge your companies to think about India, look at the opportunities. We are there to facilitate. Gunjan is there, like they are a consulting company. Also, each one of you, like anything you want to have some innovative ideas. Like we had the visit of two chief ministers from India. Like the Tamil Nadu chief minister was here, and also the Telangana chief minister. We are expecting number of chief ministers want to participate and meet with them. We are expecting a lot of chief ministers, like from Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka delegation will be here in LA also. In San Diego also they're coming, the industries minister. So if you have some ideas, you want to explore opportunities, please feel free to contact the consulate. We'll put you in touch with them so that you can also contribute to the development of India, especially your hometowns and home states. Thank you.
Am I allowed to mention your colleague here? Sripal?
My colleague Sripal,
Yeah. Can you stand up for a moment?
He's also one of you, IITN.
So IIT BHU graduate, 2017. He just joined as a consul, and part of his responsibility includes trade and investment. He's here for the day. Most of our panelists here will stay until the end. At the end of the conference, we have an Ask Me Anything session, so you can approach them at that time. All their LinkedIn URLs are on the website. Please be gentle, don't bug the heck out of them, okay? Ask something relevant, don't pester them, please, but they are certainly available to you, okay? And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you, sir. Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Pradeep, that was wonderful.
Right.
Dr. Reddy, is there, they want to do a group photo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Picture.
Good, thanks.
Thanks to the audience.
Gunjan.
Okay, well, who's who? No. Oh, Chacha. Oh, okay, all right, sorry.
All right. Thank you so much, Gunjan, Srikar.